It's the Real Estate Podcast, brought to you by ANZ Home Loans for financial well-beings.
Currently it's 600,000. It is a little bit difficult to buy a house in Perth for that price point, and you're kind of going out a lot further areas as desirable. But moving it up to 850,000, that's going to provide a lot more options, that's for sure.
And that is Peter Gavalas there in Perth on the Real Estate Breakfast this morning. We'll get back to that conversation in just a moment as we launch into another episode with more property info coming your way on a brand new week. I hope your weekend was a good one. Went by way too quickly as we connect you to the largest real estate podcast library right across Australia every morning. Do let us know where you are listening to us from. Our email address is myrealestatepodcast@gmail.com, especially if you are outside of Australia, because we know that we've got lots of listeners in the UK, in the US, in fact, in most corners of the world, in South Africa, etc. So let us know. All right, regional housing markets are still outpacing the capitals in growth, but the gap is narrowing. This is from CoreLogic's latest regional market update, which is telling us that regional dwelling values rose by 1.5% in the April quarter. That is ahead of the capital city's 1% rise. However, city markets are regaining their pace and rebounding from a decline earlier this year, which is suggesting a clear convergence not only between regional and capital markets, but also among regional hubs as high growth areas cool and others begin to catch up. And talking of catching up, let's do that right now with Peter Gavalas in Perth, and you are a buyer's agent there. Good morning, Peter. Welcome into the Real Estate Breakfast. I want to talk first off about Perth's property market, which is undergoing a little bit of a transformation as prices surge. Luxury is being redefined and demand is spilling into once overlooked suburbs.
Good morning, Craig. Thanks for having me. Yeah, so we've seen a bit of a shift in the Perth market with really strong results in suburbs that we've never seen hit those prices before. I guess we're seeing a lot of suburb records in a lot of these areas, and it's purely based on the property itself. So people are putting more emphasis into the actual property rather than the area. Generally, they're coming in from looking at more expensive close-by suburbs and considering, well, this property ticks all our boxes. It's not an area that I've previously considered, but certainly prefer this, and it's the right price point too.
Yeah, because the buyers, they're now paying millions of dollars in areas like Palmyra and Trigg, previously considered fringe. So it's ever-changing.
Absolutely, yeah. So Trigg's always been a sort of a higher level price suburb, coastal, but we saw a recent sale there for $6 million, and that wasn't even oceanfront. So people are paying premium for a good quality house and somewhere that's close to the beach with the ocean glimpses.
And this gentrification, which seems to be the buzzword at the moment, it really is shifting the urban fabric, raising questions about identity and accessibility, of course, because people are being moved on. Gentrification happens, gets a little bit more expensive. People have to go even more smaller into some of these areas that they wouldn't otherwise consider, which is obviously a little bit of a downsize for people that can't afford to live in those areas.
Yes, correct. So it has a twofold effect. Some people trying to buy in the area are getting priced out, but then others from adjoining suburbs with more budget coming in and pushing up those prices. The good thing for the area, though, I think, is seeing some bigger price points gives people more confidence in investing in that area. So, seeing quite a big sale in a particular area, and then people saying, well, I might build a house here because there is now evidence of a higher price sale, which also pushes up land prices as well, of course.
And tell us a little bit about a couple of these suburbs, Bayswater and Maylands. Now, they were once considered non-premium suburbs. It's in the lane of exactly what you're talking about. close to the CBD, these two suburbs with improved transport and culture. Gee, that's so important, isn't it, these days? If you're close to the CBD, if you get that transportation right, you get the connectivity happening, it's a real draw card. Is that what you're finding with younger buyers?
Yeah, absolutely. I think I noticed with these Maylands and Bayswater, it's a particular demographic. It's a particular type of person also that likes to move into that area as well. There's a lot more quality there for them in terms of lifestyle. Probably the type of people living in those areas. I'm finding sort of the younger families. It's close to the river, good schools, and very close to the city. With the addition of the new train line as well and train station, it's really added a bonus for that area.
What are you seeing at the moment with regard to new builds? So many of these developers still finding it difficult for the numbers to work.
Yeah, correct. So there is a shortage of tradesmen and new builds are challenging. We've also had issues with builders going bankrupt, which doesn't help. That sort of loses a bit of confidence in that building sector. Time frame and cost is a real issue. Costs have slowed down. They're not increasing as fast as they used to, but they're still going up around 5-6% a year at the moment.
Now, we've talked consistently about these investors coming in from other states, particularly New South Wales. At the moment, in terms of where we are in 2025, just how active is your market for those investors outside of Perth?
Yeah, look, last year we had a lot of investors coming into Perth looking to purchase probably below that $700,000 mark. That's probably stopped a little bit because the price point and the availability of houses in that price point is a little bit less. However, we've started to see a bit more of a return now, probably the more sort of higher priced investor, I should say, with more budget. They're coming back into the market and buying. And there's some really good buying opportunities for them, I believe. A lot of investors moved to sort of places like Melbourne, but as we know with Melbourne, it's got a lot of sort of holding costs, stamp duty costs, compliance costs. So I think people are starting to realise, Perth's still going pretty well. It hasn't peaked, and they're coming back into this marketplace and getting a really strong rental yield as well along the way.
And we're talking to Peter Gavalas there in Perth this morning. What has been happening since last week's rate cut there in Perth? We'll find out that next.
Remember to follow us on any of the podcast platforms so you never miss a real estate podcast. You can follow us on Apple, Spotify and Amazon. Know your property with us.
And our thoughts are with anyone caught up in these floods. Resources have once again been stretched to the limit. The Insurance Council CEO Andrew Hall says that the floods keep hitting the same Aussie communities because we're rebuilding without real resilience. He says we clean up, rebuild in the same spot and cross our fingers that it won't happen again. Yes, wishful thinking, and the attitude around that has to change our mindset moving forward, especially with, climate uncertainty and rising underinsurance, which is growing year on year with people either A, not able to find cover, or B, they find insurance cover just too expensive. Now, of course, plenty of us will say, how is that you cannot find the money to insure your house? Obviously, we don't know the situation for everybody, and some people just don't have enough money to do that.
Good morning, Craig. Yes, always good to have a couple of days off in a row. We don't complain about that.
Now, families earning $200,000 plus, many people will say, gee, you're lucky to be in that position, $200,000 plus. Surely you are not finding any difficulty in paying your mortgage. However, this is the situation for many Aussies. They're finding themselves barely scraping by, and the Aussie dream of home ownership has turned into a little bit of a financial juggling point. Is that what you're finding with some of your clients?
Yes, we're finding that there's this group of people who have done everything right by the textbooks. They've gone on to get tertiary educations, they're earning good incomes, they've bought their house in the suburbs, and they're finding that they're now a prisoner of that scenario, in the fact that with the rising house prices, typically salaried positions without a lot of wage growth, the cost of living crisis that we're experiencing, childcare as the family grows, these people are left with $0 left at the end of the week and having to make decisions about how they put food on the table.
Stay ahead of the competition with the latest news, insights and data analysis on the Property Podcast that keeps you informed.
And it's a Real Estate Monday, and we are back in Perth with Peter giving us the lay of the property market there. Inquiries since last week, Peter. The RBA, of course, dropping 25 basis points. Has that been a little bit of a uptick for you?
Absolutely. I mean, last week we had one of the biggest inquiries we've had the last couple of months, to be honest. So lots of people sort of making, probably a little bit more confident now that the interest rates have peaked and they're probably going down, not going up. So it probably gives people a bit of confidence, A, to buy property knowing the cost of repayments won't go up, and also B, they want to get in on the market before it starts sort of really moving again.
What about those first-time buyers at the moment in terms of inquiries?
Yeah, look, they've certainly always been around. I suspect that once this the new caps come in with the government is proposing, it's going to see a real change in that price point and marketplace. So the cap in Perth is going up from $600,000 to $850,000 for the 5% deposit scheme. So that's going to be a real boost for that sector and for that market, I believe.
Oh yeah, no, that is a great initiative. When does that come in?
Well, I believe it's going to be 1st of January 2026.
Wow. So that'll be interesting. I wonder just how many people are factoring that in between their save time between now and then. I would say a real planning effect is taking place.
Yeah, absolutely. And, if you're short on deposit, I mean, currently it's $600,000. It is a little bit difficult to buy a house in Perth for that price point, and you're kind of going out a lot further areas as desirable. But moving it up to $850,000, that's going to provide a lot more options, that's for sure.
Certainly will, no doubt about that. All right, we'll leave it there, Peter. Thank you so much for joining us on the Real Estate Breakfast this morning. Enjoy your Monday, enjoy your week there in Perth.
Thanks very much, Craig. Good speaking with you.
We don't just report on real estate news, we take you to the source of the information. We produce more property podcasts every week than anyone else. We are your trusted guide for all things real estate.
If the lenders aren't passing on the discounts, a lot of consumers they're searching, so they're ready to refinance. They're not staying loyal to their lenders anymore, which we always encourage.
Look, first home buyers, I don't know the full ins and outs of what they're bringing in, but there's going to obviously be an increase of purchase price to reduction of stamp duty, plus obviously new builds.
Oh, absolutely. We sold a very small 3-bedroom in Botany, moved up here. We found downsizers because we moved to a 5-bedroom, very expansive place with plenty of money still in the bank. So it was a good move.
What I think you get obviously in a market like Sydney, Melbourne, Brisbane, relative to what you would get in Hong Kong is going to be vastly different.
From first-time home buyers to seasoned investors to breaking property news, discover the stories behind the real estate. We connect you to the best real estate information across Australia. The Real Estate Podcast.